Managing your money and getting paid on time. That's what we're talking about today on The Money Factor. Hi, I'm Ian Varley, CEO of Eagle Business Credit, and welcome to The Money Factor, where we talk about business issues and get your money questions answered. Let's take that first question.
What do we need to do before giving a new customer credit terms?
Credit terms, great question. A lot of people want extended terms to pay. What you have to look at is, should you be giving credit in the first place? If your industry doesn't necessarily demand it, if it's not the norm, then don't. You don't have to. Ultimately, it's your decision whether to really provide finance to your customer and give them that time to pay. Clearly, if you're in a sector where 90 days is the norm, it's going to be difficult to do anything less than that if you want to remain competitive. But even so, be sure about that customer. Make sure they are creditworthy for those terms. So you've heard of Dun & Bradstreet. There are plenty of other credit reference agencies out there these days that you can sign up for. Do the research. Make sure you understand about that new customer or an existing customer that wants an increase in credit line as well. Make sure they're worth it. That's really important. A lot of people are too concerned about making the sale, increasing your volume, but really not or less concerned about whether the customer can afford to pay. Look at their account. Have they typically paid you on time or not? If they're always behind and you're chasing them up for checks, don't give them credit or don't give them any more credit. Certainly don't give them extended credit. Don't be afraid to ask for the payment and keep them to those terms. Really, really important. Your cash flow is the lifeblood of your business. If the credit reference agency report doesn't really support the amount that they're asking for, maybe ask them for some trade references. Obviously, look at that and really decide whether it can support what they're asking for. But again, don't feel pressured into giving terms if you don't need to. Ideally, you'd like them to pay up front. Unfortunately, not many people want to do that. Maybe you can do cash on delivery. That's a great term. You don't carry that cash flow risk then. But if you are granting terms, make sure you're confident about that customer's creditworthiness and ability to pay. Got any questions on that? Give us a call. We look at that all day long and we'd love to help you.
How do I make sure my business gets paid on time?
Know your customer. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask them for payment. Find out who cuts the checks. Do they have a payment routine that, every Thursday Doris in accounts will send a payment? Great, get to know Doris. She should be your best friend. Make sure that you're at the top of her list to get paid. She likes you, she wants to pay your invoice. That's the relationship you need. If you don't call and ask for the money, chances are they're not going to pay you until either you do call or they get round to it because there's no incentive to do so. A lot of people, unfortunately, will take as much time as they can to pay invoices. We see it all the time. One of the things we help companies with is really bridging that cash flow gap between when you deliver the product or service and when the customer eventually pays. And we see all sorts of people that will take 60 to 75 to 80 days or longer to pay, and their terms can be only 30 days. And often it's down to the company just not managing that customer very well. Don't be afraid to ask for the money. It's perfectly reasonable, especially if you have delivered everything on time. They should pay you. And another thing that some people employ is, once you have delivered those goods or completed that service, just call them up and make sure everything was okay. That way you know that when your invoice comes through, there should be no concerns. The last thing you want is a dispute to arise because you didn't figure out whether everything was okay at the point you made that sale. So lots of things you can do. Most important thing is stay in touch with your customer and make sure that they understand that you're looking to get paid as promptly to terms as possible.
My customer isn't paying me. What should I do?
Well, the first thing is obviously speak to them, find out what's going on. Maybe it's a bump in the road, they've got some issues and it can be fixed very quickly, in which case, no problem. But persistent, polite, professional follow-up is really, really important. If they are having a difficult time and they really can't pay you, maybe consider a repayment plan. Sometimes it helps people if you're prepared to work with them And again, you could have a customer then for a long time because they understand that you help them out in a difficult phase of their business. But do agree a repayment plan and do hold them to that as well. If they say they're going to pay you, make sure that payment was sent. You can do that in a very friendly way. It really is just a question of following up. Another thing to really consider is, are you still supplying them and yet they're not paying you? You should really put them on stop. Now, nobody wants to lose a customer, and it's a horrible thing to have to do for somebody, to put them on stop, but really it is a very effective tool to get paid. And companies will respond usually fairly favorably to that, and it's just a question of being a little bit tougher than maybe you're used to being, that will ensure that you get that payment. Again, communication, finding out what's going on, don't be afraid to put them on stop. Ultimately though, if they're not paying and there is a problem that's going on with that business, you may need to consider collection action. It is something that people have to do. Don't let your company be a victim to a non-paid or unpaid debt or a bad debt for that reason. Make sure you stay in touch with your customer. Thank you again for all your questions. That's all we have time for today on this episode of The Money Factor. You can find us online at #TheMoneyFactor. Please think of some questions, send them in.